Good afternoon. Welcome everybody. Can I first please say that I need to ask you a big round of applause to the other members of the team, especially Alicia. Alicia is the alma mater. But we have Irina, we have Ali, Miguel, myself, and Kate, both who is not here, and Pedro, who is in the Czech Republic. So this is a big team effort, and I think it's difficult to imagine another project like this in my life, in my career. I think this is one of the things I feel most proud of, I have to say. The project is called OpenLIVES. What I said about our friend Alicia. Alicia was leading a project on oral history of Spanish migrants, people who left Spain and then went back to Spain, many of them, from the end of the 1930s and to the 1960s. And in that project, she actually collected a big bank of resources, oral history interviews, but also some pictures, drawings, materials from these people who had, kindly offered to tell Alicia and the research team she was leading their life story. Some of them very moving, actually. You have here, this presentation will be available after the event. So you have there some links to some of the other resources related to this research data. And on the basis of that fantastic opportunity for development, there was an application, successful application for funding of GISC. And the OpenLIVES project was given the green light, and the idea was to digitize all the materials, all the interviews that Alicia and Darren had conducted, digitize also the rest of resources that could be interesting for the learning community, create a collection of learning resources related to those oral history interviews, make sure that those learning resources could be used in a variety of disciplines. Make sure that those resources could be used in a variety of disciplines. So in a way, I don't know if to say this in front of the camera, but languages is taken over with this methodology of the subjects. And we want this type of methodology to be used in geography, in history, even in literature, why not? And it's a collaboration led by Southampton and this subject center, LLAS, in collaboration, as I said, with Portsmouth, the University of Portsmouth, and the University of Leeds. And that's one of the examples of the final output. I wouldn't say final product. This is a home box. That's a picture of Miguel, one of our most celebrated research informants in Barcelona. His life is fascinating, his life story educationally invaluable. Our students love it, and you can find a number of resources related to his life, including the full interview of his life. So this is the OpenLIVES project, and then I'd like to say a little bit about the title of the conference, of the paper, Transformational. It has been transformational for us, it has been transformational for the students, it has been even transformational institutionally. We haven't discussed this first, but it has transformed things in Leeds. And the idea is that it is transformational also for us as professionals and for society. There is a very strong social purpose behind this project. It's not only education, it's also social. And you'll see that in a minute. So I think I should leave you now with my colleague Miguel, who is going to tell you about his contribution, the contribution of the University of Portsmouth to this project. Do you want me to move the slides for you?
It's okay.
Well, do you want to stay there?
I think I'm fine here.
Okay.
Don't worry. I would like to say exactly the same as Antonio. I think that we work together in various projects, but this is the one project that touched me. Not only me, myself, but also I think touched my students as well. I think that's probably because of the human nature of the project. What we did with this material that Alicia collected was to integrate these as resources, to create open resources within a already existing unit at Portsmouth University. It is in the second year, so it was students had to research an NGO, company or profession. It was already existing, as I said. Produce a magazine, plus an oral presentation, plus a video in level 3. I gave them the possibility of using these materials, the materials that we had, the interviews, the photographies, to create a project about the Niños de la Guerra. And out of the 38 level 2 students who took the uni, 14 produced this project, decided to produce this project. The others, well, decided to go on to the NGO or a kind of more market-oriented project. That was assessed, and I have to be very, very quickly. We can discuss that later on about the details if you want to know more. So it was assessed. They had a 30% oral report, production of agendas and minutes in the target language, and then the final product, which was a magazine that you will see, was worth 70% of the final mark. What the students used was the interviews conducted by Alicia Pozo, a transcript of Germinal's interview by Pedro García Guirao. Germinal is one of the children of the war. They used the We Came Along article edited by Manuel Corsino, another children of the war. Drawings by Germinal Luis, and a student-produced interview to Germinal, and they conducted as well, in addition, their own research using books, journals, etc., websites, etc. So I think that the one thing that made the difference is that our students, I mean, we wanted to invite Germinal. Germinal is such a nice character. We got in touch with him. He's living history, and his history is so fascinating, so human. It's living halfway, well, in many countries in the world. And the students wanted to interview him. We invited Germinal. He couldn't come because he's 83. He was experiencing some health problems. So then I asked my students to record the questions. I took the questions, went to Barcelona and interviewed Germinal there. So I think that you could see a little bit of the interview that our students prepared. This is the work.
¿Se siente más venezolano o español?
Hay momentos que me siento más venezolano, sí, hay momentos. Porque a fin de cuentas, pues desde hace una cantidad de años ahí en Venezuela, más de medio siglo en Venezuela. Y mis hijas y todo el mundo, mis amigos más íntimos, todo eran venezolanos. Y además que es un país muy bello, muy bello.
Okay, so that gives us an idea. There were many other questions. So the questions have been designed by the students, created by them, and then just I put them, I read them out, and they got the feedback from Germinal. Yeah. So I'm going to give you an example because I think that the students are much better at explaining how they felt that I can't. So during the progress report interview, we videoed that. And this is what the students have to say about the project. I hope it works. Don't tell me it's not going to work.
It will work.
You think?
Yeah. If not, the file is there anyway. You can click the file.
Okay. Oh, it's in the folder, isn't it? Let's go and click the
It says end show, it's not the end of the show. Here it is.
And they're all in the hot box anyway, aren't they?
Yeah.
Para mí era, me parece muy interesante investigar lo que ocurrió para él en Francia, porque soy estudiante de francés y de los estudios franceses, y para mi disertación voy a investigar la vida en Francia, y por esta razón me presentó otra visión de lo que ocurrió para los niños de la guerra, para los españoles que tenían que escapar la dictadura de Franco. Así que sí, me pareció que era no sé, una historia muy compleja.
¿Cuál es el aspecto más difícil de este proyecto?
Diría que el aspecto más difícil era unir todas las fuentes, porque la mayoría son muy generales, así que es bastante, al principio es bastante difícil comprenderlos y unirlos con lo que sabemos de Germinal, y quería verlos de un punto de vista histórico pero general, para que se pueda ver los vínculos entre lo que se estaba ocurriendo en España y para Germinal. Es decir, era bastante difícil ver los vínculos entre la historia personal y la historia general, nacional, etc.
Era muy interesante y he aprendido mucho sobre la guerra y los niños de la guerra. Era realmente un placer hablar con Germinal y ver la entrevista.
¿Cómo has investigado el proyecto y qué fuentes? Yo creo que esto nos da... I think that this gives you an idea of the type of work that it involved and how students really were motivated about this project. I should have said that obviously Germinal escaped from the Spanish Civil War when he was a child. He went to France, from France obviously had to escape, went to the United States, and finally he reunited with his parents in Venezuela when he was 17. So, and then finally he went back to his roots, Barcelona, where he lives now. So this is the end product, and I think that the fact that students had access to this human history made the whole difference. They learned history through the personal history of Germinal, and that motivated them. And I think that that's a perfect example of how content and language integrated learning can occur in the classroom context. So let's have a look at the magazines that they produce in the end. I've got the originals here, just in case you want to see them, if it works. Antonio, save me, please.
Well, is the link to files?
It's the link on the internet, yes?
Why don't we take the example, the real example?
Okay,
it's
fine.
nice, actually.
That is in my...
Okay,
well,
okay.
this is becoming
But
formal.
I'll say something in the meantime. Have you heard what the girl was saying about living the life of Germinal and the sources? They are very general. That makes you actually think about the value of the teaching of history in higher education. You know, what's the relationship with humans? What's the relationship with life? She was struggling to make the connection between the life of that person who escaped war, you know, and what she knows about history. So it's not just about integrating content and language. This is actually making content meaningful.
Yeah, exactly. And as well, this girl, I mean, she was a student of Spanish and French, which meant that because Germinal escaped from Spain and was living in France, she could establish the connection to a particular area of studies, yeah? And that was really, really rich for her, and it helped her even with her dissertation. This is the type of pamphlets they ended up with, very professionally done. You can have a look at them later on. So what they use is the information, all copyright, all free, open resources, and obviously available to you if you want to use them. But I think that was...
In the boombox, yeah? In the
boombox, yeah. So let's continue. Okay, the problems that we had was very briefly copyright and quality. Most of the material was copyright free, so they had cleared that, but some of them it wasn't, so we can reduce that. Factual, historical errors, there were quite a few of those. And then the ethics of interviewing. We had to protect our interviews. So some of the questions they wanted me to ask her now, I couldn't ask. So I had to filter those. And then some problems of plagiarism, but they were minimal. So what we have here is a model of open resources production. So you can see that resource at the very top was produced by level 2 students. Then the idea is that these resources are going to be repurposed by grade 3 students, final year students, so they will look at the content, they will look at the stakes, they will perhaps add some more content, some more pictures. And then once that has been finalized, then it can go to be used as materials for our first year students. Reading comprehension, cultural awareness, content and language integrated learning. And then of course it goes to the OER bank, handbox, community, etc. So what we have is a cycle, complete cycle of resource production. Advantages, collaboration across level institutions, because that video was produced by Portsmouth, subtitled, introduced by the students at the University of Southampton. So what we have here is a clear collaboration between Portsmouth and Southampton, students, a student collaboration.
What? Is it?
No.
No.
No. You can use this for different purposes: face-to-face, independent learning, for research. You can use it for language. You can use it for content and language integrated learning, for translation, for subtitling. Skills. Well, obviously, what you have is language skills, research skills, professional. They have to negotiate editing, the stock publishing. It's a very complete exercise. So much so, and so impressed were some of my colleagues at the University of Portsmouth with the results and the motivation of these students, that we decided to create this type of unit as a potential alternative to the dissertation. The LPC2 will become now what we will call a DRU, Designated Research Unit. So students can do either the designated research units plus a shorter project or the traditional dissertation. And I think that many of them will go for this type of option. And that's about
Well, at Leeds, I've done two things. One of them is to create a number of autonomous learning activities and learning activities related to the module I'm going to talk about, and I have created a module or a unit, as they call it in other places, 20 credits in final year Spanish programs, and it has been a relatively popular option. The students are already taking that module. The first thing I have to say is that in the abstract, I promised that this would be transformational teaching. I could prove that this teaching was transformational. And also, I was going to talk about integration of content, research, skills, language. I think the easiest way for me and for you is I will concentrate a little bit on what the students do and how we do it week by week. So there are 3 slides like this showing what we do in the module. We introduce the OpenLIVES collection in Homebox, and they get to see Alicia's work and all the interviews in the Homebox, etc., just an overview. Then we talk about economic migration from Spain during the Franco regime. This module has a different focus, it's on economic migration. And then I give students samples of the interviews of OpenLIVES so that they can choose their favorite slot within each interview, that they comment and get familiar with the materials and explain to everybody else why they are interested in that particular part of the interview. It's about familiarizing them, getting them familiar with the materials, with the research. Then we get into oral history. Obviously, oral history is a discipline that was born as an alternative to traditional history. Traditional history studies the processes, usually from a national perspective. Oral history was created to reflect and disseminate the lives of those individuals who have been in a situation of marginalization, or have been in a situation, enduring a situation of pain. And it started to be very popular in the 1960s with people that had been into the Vietnam War, or people who had suffered ethnic discrimination. And epistemologically, morally, ethically, it's a great alternative to traditional history. It has its own methodology, its own social ethos. And I think students should not study history of any kind, contemporary history of any kind, without this exceptional source, oral history, and this methodology, because it makes history to make sense. So we use open educational resources produced in other places. I'm not an expert, well, I'm becoming an expert now, but I'm not the expert that I should have been in oral history, so I've used the best open educational resources. Professor Penny Summerfield in Manchester, she had a fantastic presentation and lecture. We had a lot of books that students read and reflect upon what it means, the social, ethical purpose of oral history. Then we continue to study some of the, we study the context that the students need to understand, be aware of, for what comes at the end of the module. At the end of the module, students have to produce a documentary based on the lives of Spanish migrants that have arrived in Leeds in the last years, because they don't have a job in Spain and they want to find one here. So there are a lot of people coming from Spain in the last years here, and we want to know their life, we want to know the story, we want to know, the suffering, and we want to know their intercultural experiences, etc. So it's using the methodology of Alicia for the people who escaped war, or were also some of them economic migrants in the 1960s, going to France or Germany. We want to apply all that to the current situation. And the students at the end have to produce a podcast in which they have soundtracks of the interviews that they are doing now. In fact, tomorrow we have another one. And if they want, they can also use soundtracks of the original OpenLIVES interviews to illustrate whatever they want to say. So, obviously, in semester one, we talk about preparation of interviews, ethic protocols. The students have seen all the ethic forms that I have prepared to be able to do all this research with real people, with common lay people. The recent economic and social crisis in Spain, all the students need to understand all this, because when they confront the person who is going to be telling them about losing their job and the financial crisis and the banking crisis with the housing boom, etc., etc., they need to be able to understand that context. Coding interviews, analyzing them, identifying themes, and we actually organize ourselves as project meetings, because many of these decisions are taken by students. They have to be taken by them. We meet in a classroom like this, and we discuss everything that needs to be done, participant recruitment, etc. So, that's semester one. And then, January the 9th, they presented a 750 research project, which is assessed. I gave them already feedback. On Wednesday, we did an interview with somebody who was an architect, lost his job in Spain, and he's now in Leeds looking for things. He's been a cleaner, he's been all sorts of things. We have another one tomorrow with a girl from Barcelona. We'll do probably one or more too, but everything is being done as a team. So there are 2 students or 3 who interview, some others are in charge of transcribing, then they rotate. Everybody's doing a little bit of everything. And what we're going to do when they do the interviews and they have the feedback, which I have already of the first assessed piece, is that they will talk about that feedback, present informally all the feedback that I gave them to everybody else orally, and talk about their project and how these interviews are going to impact in their project. And And then once they've done that informally, then they have a formal oral presentation, which will be at the end of February, in which they move forward and take in, closing the feedback loop, take in all the commentaries, all the comments from students, all the things that other students have been talking about regarding the project, and my feedback. Trojan horse, very important image of this motion.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. So, after Easter, just before Easter, we obviously do a practical session on documentaries, what type of documentaries, pragmatics, Jones, editing, software, and obviously publishing, OER, intellectual property rights, publishing open educational resources, because we want to make sure that the final output, which is a documentary that the students feel proud of, a documentary that is going to be shared with the world, that is something that has been given all the scaffolding in terms of support and learning throughout the module. Students submit a script, I give them feedback, and then they submit the final version of the script in a podcast. So what happens with the documentary? Do they just go into the home box and publish it? Well, I have to say that the impact of this project has gone beyond the students and the teaching. For instance, one example, in the University of Leeds, I'm a member of the steering group for open educational resources, and we have drafted a policy that has been officially approved for the whole of the institution, which is a unique thing in the country, having a comprehensive overall policy approved at the highest level for open educational resources. And in that policy, we have taken into account all these things that we are doing with the students, so that it is covered. In many other places, perhaps, you will have to fight your way to convince managers and heads of the schools that actually the students can publish and should be encouraged to publish open educational resources. So we come through that hurdle thanks to OpenLIVES. And the trick of there is a little trick there. I don't want students to publish open educational resources until they got the mark for the final year course, yeah, and everything is done, because I don't want them to feel the pressure of having to publish their work to please me because they know I like open educational resources. There's a very ethical, dilemma there. So there is a window of time, which is once the course has finished and the marks are out, and the graduation day, in that window of time, they can come and see me, and if they want, they can publish it and disseminate it with the community. So, transformational. In what ways is it transformational? Finish with all this. Yeah, so it's a full cycle, complex process of student research, production, and we obviously close the feedback loop in many ways. It is socially relevant for the students, personally relevant for the students. It makes a difference for society because we are documenting something that probably nobody else will document because the media have a way of dealing with migration and economic problems. Politicians, let's not talk about that. And historians, God knows what they'll say about this period. The pupil, the student, becomes a researcher, becomes a producer, following the idea of Mike Mary, and they become actually public authors. It's knowledge that is constructed socially, is ethical knowledge, because it's being produced ethically and it has an ethical purpose. And it prepares for life, empowerability. You've seen that I haven't talked about employability. I've talked about skills, perhaps, or empowerability, making sure that students are prepared for life and to take options and make the best of their knowledge and the beliefs and the values and the capabilities. Employability is fine, but it's only a small part of the type of education that our students should receive in terms of skills. And the skills that they learn, I talked the other day about this issue of the labeling of the skills. The skills are not just professionals. I mean, there's not differentiation between academic skills and professional skills. I think some academics don't have the skills that they should have, and then they need to go and import skills from other places like corporations. But I think there are many other academics here, we can see many of them, who have so many skills that we don't really need to establish this differentiation between academic skills and professional skills. So we are providing skills, full stop. Yeah? And our skills are as good or better than anybody else's. And transformation, dame un poco para atrás, un poco atrás. Un segundo, just a second. So transformation for us, we become language and content specialists. Is the Trojan horse of languages into content. This is the way social science should be taught, not just language. We become research practitioners. We become oral historians, academic educators, ethics and ethical educators, skills educators, and also social impact. So we are doing all these things with this module. And bottom, if somebody doesn't feel like doing this next year because they think this is a bit too much, I've done it, it's fine, but it's a bit tiring. You can taste the water with an autonomous learning activity, that you can introduce with your students, and it's in Homebox. And you present students with the task of presenting some of this work that actually doesn't have really a presentation in itself, presenting it to different communities and different groups and different audiences. And bottom, and that's it, I think. Yeah, and thank you to Jess for the funding, Lash, Kate, Alicia, Ali, Pedro, Irina, and the University of Southampton, and the people of the pictures. Thank you very much.
We thought this would be a good project, but we didn't think it would be quite this good. But that's thanks to you guys who've really transformed this idea that we had. As Alicia kept coming and saying, what am I doing with this material? It's on a shelf. I need to do something with it. So we finally found some money. And then it was transformed into something quite amazing.
So it was transformed by the students.
It was, and I think
that's the major
linking it back into
asset
the
of this
students.
project.
Yeah.
And by the pedagogical imagination of the teachers.
Any comments from the audience or questions?
I was one of those disaffected academics that Professor McNeary spoke about yesterday, until I started working with these guys and with Ali and Kay, and I saw the potential. I thought there was meaning to this. I was under the pressures of getting yet more funding, gather more data, and then all this material, all these life stories were being shelved, and were gathering dust. And that was causing a lot of troubles for me personally. So I've recovered a bit of it's been transformational for me as well, because I have recovered a bit of faith in academia and universities. A little bit. I'm still very disaffected in many respects, but this is an area where pedagogically there's still hope. There's still a bit of light, I think, if we follow these models of work.
Yeah, and it's all there in humbox.ac.uk. So thank you very much.
Thank you.